NZ Aerosports, Icarus Canopies, now Gyro. That's right, we've rebranded, and Gyro is our next generation. It honours our founder, as that's the name we knew him by, but Gyro also marks the start of a new chapter. And not to be biased, but it's going to be fucking epic. Long story short, we're more us than ever. So if you're new to the sport, or even a Sky God Ninja Turtle, welcome. I think our valiant leader Lucy, Gyro's daughter, says it best.
And we still got that fuck yeah attitude. Rebrand! Woo!
Rebrand woo indeed, Lucy. Anyway, head over to gyro.com for more info and get amongst you legends.
I was 19, broke, unemployed, and sold my girlfriend's canopy for drug money. So I thought I better sew her a new one. What a sentence, and what a story. This describes the humble yet outrageous beginnings of NZ Aerosports, the home of Icarus Canopies, in the words of our founder himself. From getting a paratrooper toy from his mom, watching parachutes at the DZ as a 6-year-old, jumping off the wharf with a parachute made from bed sheets, doing his first jump at 16, sewing his first canopy on a borrowed machine at 19, and starting to sell parachutes out of a garage in 1986, Paul Gyro Martin had an undying love for the sky. Our company started with one man with the wildest of spirits and a true blue sky dream, a renegade. In the time that Gyro created and ran the Icarus Canopies brand until he passed away in 2017, he pushed everything he had to its limits. We miss him, and we always will. Gyro is the next generation of NZ Aerosports. It honors our founder, of course, because it was the name we all knew him by, but Gyro the rebrand also marks the start of a new chapter, our next jump. Gyro is the space between sound and silence, art and science, chaos and calm. Gyro is a state of epic tranquility that transcends understanding. That moment, in the door, in free fall, mid-swoop, where nothing but the present exists. A perfect balance of euphoria and thrill. Gyro captures our passion for flying and our commitment to designing break-the-fucking-rules canopies that deliver pilots pure, wild flight. Hey gang, so I got a new book out. It's called The Upside of Fear, and it's exactly what you think it's about. It's about the good side of, well, getting scared. In it, we talk not only about the science and biology behind fear, but the psychology as well. And it's not just coming from me, it's coming from some of the best in the sport. Omar Alhigelan, Jeff Provenzano, Maxine Tate, and so many more have contributed their sometimes terrifying stories to the book to help you overcome your fear. So head to the lunaticfringepodcast.com. You're going to find the link to the book there, as well as the other books. It's available in ebook, paperback, hardback, and audiobook right now.
Coming straight from the cockpit, it's another episode of Lunatic Fringe with the fucking pilot.
Ready, set, go! Back in the can for another edition of the Lunatic Fringe podcast and another smiling face on the other side. Let's get to it. Who the fuck are you and what do you do?
Hello, I'm Sherry Butcher. And let's see, who am I? I am a drop zone owner, a board member for the United States Parachute Association. And you know what? At heart, I'm a teacher. That's what I am.
Nice. You know, I'll tell you what, you look normal. Why the hell are you a drop zone owner? You don't look like you've got a screw loose.
I have heard that for many, many years.
You would have to.
You skydive? Really? No way. Yeah, I don't know.
The skydiving, I get it's the crossing that threshold into DZO life, because you don't just have to deal with skydiving, you have to deal with skydivers.
Yeah. I love the chaos. I love making the drop zone work, the machine work, all of the moving parts. I love organizing it all and just watching it run. It's like, give me that challenge and I'm going to go as fast as I can and at the end of the day collapse and be like, we did it.
That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
before we get too deep into that, and we definitely are going to, I want to jump you back to your beginnings, not necessarily just in skydiving, but in anything so-called extreme.
Okay. So I grew up riding dirt bikes, digging holes and making jumps and hurting myself unnecessarily, but that's just what we did as kids.
Right.
It was a great life. We had plenty of land behind us before they put in a freeway and took away all of our trails. And so I just grew up. I think I was 5 or 6 years old. I got my first little tiny motorcycle, and yeah, it was super fun.
Where and when would this have been?
It was, I grew up in Worthington, Ohio, so just outside of Columbus. And so let's see, I was early 70s and started.
So you're like me, you're a Gen Xer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
so the go outside and don't come home till the street lights are on kid.
Absolutely. Yep.
I'll tell
Yeah,
you what, I hate being of the generation that goes, we were so cool, but we were fucking cool.
You're not kidding.
Right?
So my parents had this big bell in the backyard. No kidding. Like just a bell that you could go out and ring like on a Amish farm.
Right.
And when my mom wanted us to come home, you could hear that thing for miles. When she wanted us to come home, I'd hear this ding, 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 ding. And we'd hop on our bikes or motorcycle, wherever we were, and when we would come home.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, people think it's a joke when you tell them that we are of the generation that literally had a TV commercial that would come on and say, it's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your kids are?
Right.
Like people think you're full of shit when you say that, but it's so true.
Yeah. I just finished listening to your book.
Oh, nice.
The Upside of Fear, and I remember that in the book. Yeah, that's it's pretty amazing. But that's exactly right.
It was every generation, I'm sure, has their amazing things, but it's really fun to look back at how self-sufficient we were as kids back then. And yeah, I mean, you hurt yourself, you just rub some dirt in it, and as long as everything was still aimed in the right direction, you carried on.
Yep. Yeah, I know. I remember hearing, if you're going to be adventurous, you got to be tough.
Yeah.
Don't cry. Just get up and, do better.
Yeah. What was the other way? If you're going to be stupid, you better be tough.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Same thing.
That
I
always
think the only thing my parents ever said no to, God bless them, they were, it was just great. It was owning a moped. They said absolutely not. That 1980s, early 80s high school kind of thing where everybody got these mopeds and we're driving around. They're like, nope.
Sure.
You can ride any motorcycle you want off of a road, but you are not getting something. So I was very in shape, keeping up with those mopeds on my bike.
Yes. I mean, the distance that we would travel as kids using pedals.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was amazing to me, even looking back on it now, how far away from home we'd actually get and realize, oh shit, we got to get all the way and back on your bike you go.
Right. Hoping you'd get there before dark.
Oh, yeah. So now when did skydiving come into your life? Because when people think skydiving, they don't naturally think Ohio.
Kind of late. I was 28 when I did my first jump. So I feel like I missed 10 years of skydiving, unfortunately, but it didn't present itself for quite a while. I was at a restaurant bar kind of place and ran into some people that were skydivers and got a card, kept it for a couple years in my purse. And then finally I ran into some other skydivers and went the next day and never looked back. Went and did a static line jump in Grand Lake, Salina, Ohio, and went back the next day for another jump and got licensed in about a month. And there we go.
So now what was life like before skydiving? What were you doing?
I was in school finishing my master's degree in social work and was living in small town Ohio, Sydney, Ohio, and just looking for some adventure, I think.
The fact that you have your master's in social work actually explains the DZO thing quite a bit.
Yep.
That
Yeah.
links up really well. I mean, you having that as your background, you must see so many things from your education on a daily basis strolling around the drop zone.
Right. My goal initially was to get my doctorate and teach, right? And so my bachelor's is in psychology. I figured out quickly that just talking wasn't going to be the way that was going to be happy. I needed to do things for people or with people and have that interaction. And so decided to get my master's in social work. And then when I started jumping and my life just took this, 90-degree hard turn, it sure does apply to skydiving. All the psychology, all of the working with students. And I knew I wanted to teach. Every job I've had, I've been a teacher. So of some sort or another. And now I found like this passion. I was like, oh, I can't wait to teach this stuff. This is so awesome. And I think the biggest part of being a great instructor is not just the mechanics of skydiving, it's the psychology of skydiving and managing fear and improving performance and helping them cope and believe that they can do it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think the mechanics of skydiving is the least of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it really is. At the end of the day, there's only so much that goes into the physical act of skydiving. It's the mental game. And
Mm-hmm.
it's funny that I never studied nor was I interested in psychology until well after I had become an established instructor in skydiving. And then it became the most interesting thing ever. And now just the study of psychology and what makes us tick and how people's minds work is so interesting because I can paint this picture throughout my career in skydiving, having seen so many variations of it.
Right. I agree.
It's
It
really
plays a
cool.
huge role in people's success in the industry.
So you're a girl in this is the 90s you started jumping, early 90s?
1993 was my first jump.
So 93, you're 28 years old, you're on the fast track for a very successful career, and then you go jump out of an airplane. What does the small town Ohio family think of that?
Well, it was if you are gonna keep skydiving, we're getting divorced. And my response was, okay.
Awesome.
I guess I guess I'm going somewhere else than the small town Ohio.
Oh,
Actually, I just changed small towns in Ohio, but a skydive friendly one. Yeah.
wow. I mean, that's you. So you knew from the get-go that that was it.
I did almost immediately. Like it filled me up in a way that it's almost impossible to explain, like and I think this is why I love teaching so much, and the psychology side, social work side of me is that I can see in people their self-esteem that, improve their self-confidence. They find a place in the world. And even if it's not forever, it's for that day or that week or that year. And I think it affects the rest of their life. I really do feel like there's so much positive in the experience. And it's my job as an instructor, as a DZO, to make it the best.
Sure. Well, and it really is. I think it's something that just will soak through every aspect of your life to some degree. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and you would know better than most. I've got 8,000 people walking around this planet somewhere that don't remember my name, probably couldn't pick me out of a lineup, and couldn't give me even details of that day, but they have an experience that they will absolutely never forget. Um, and that, as an instructor, I'm sure you know, is just this the most amazing feeling to know I gave this to somebody else.
Oh, it is. It
Oh,
is. And I love looking around the drop zone at I mean, they're like all my kids, right? Like so many of the people at the drop zone are just homegrown. I was there for their first jump. I was there for their A license. I was there for their instructor rating. And just like, it's amazing how, the impact that you can have. And
sure. Now, did you know from the get-go that instruction was the way you wanted to go, or were there dreams of competition and all that stuff? I mean, what was the driving force?
Mostly teaching. Like I am almost immediately went as soon as I was eligible. I went and went to a static line jump master course,
Oh, wow.
and I know static line jump master, and then a static line instructor. I chased all the ratings pretty quickly. By 1998, I had a tandem rating and a AFF rating and a senior rigger, and I felt like I needed to be, well versed in a lot of different things if I was going to be supervising people
Sure.
at a drop zone. So, and I was pretty young in the sport, so who am I if I don't have some credential at least to or be able to speak intelligently?
Sure.
So that's
It's funny though, right? Because we see these people come through the sport all the time with lofty goals, right out of the gate. And in the early days for me in the sport, when you would have someone come out and say, "Oh, I want to do this and that and the other," and you'd go, "Yeah, yeah, sure you do. You bet." Because
right.
we've seen that revolving door of tandems that come in, do a jump, go home, we never see them again.
Right.
But after you spend enough years in the sport, you realize that 1 out of 100 of those people with lofty goals are actually gonna do it. And so
Mm-hmm.
you learn to just kind of go, maybe they will. Maybe they
Yeah.
will, which is
Yeah.
cool,
Right. I like to assume that they all will and try my hardest to keep them all, but
right?
you know that you're not going to be able to do that. But it is easier and easier over the time to pick out the ones that it really affects and that they're really dedicated, and then try to mentor them into
Yeah,
making good choices.
crazy knows crazy.
Uh-huh. That's
It's
true.
you can
Absolutely.
you can spot that sparkle in their eye and go, "Oh yeah, you've got the
Oh yeah.
same screws are loose in you as they are in me."
I know. I love telling as I'm stamping somebody's A license, like only 475 jumps till you're eligible for that tandem rating.
Right? And it's funny, right? Because you'll get the people that don't skydive and don't know anything about it, and half of them are always, "How do you make money jumping out of airplanes?" And really, the only answer is you teach them. And so
Yeah.
it's just this circle. All we're doing
Hmm.
is adding to the supply of people that we get to go have fun with.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And,
That's it.
and that's why that's part of the motivation for a coach course every year, even if you only have one or two candidates and AFF courses, because you always have to feed that lineup, the up and coming people, because people just don't last. Life gets in the way, and they
Sure.
do other things. So there's
Well,
so much attrition.
lots of little things, and I mean, you find that it's very common, especially for jumpers of my generation, to take 3, 4, 5 years off because life got in the way, or
Hmm.
even more than that. But one of the cool things that I've seen over more recent years is a lot of people coming back years and years later, getting back into it in their late 40s, late 50s, even into their 60s, going, "I used to jump back in the
Hmm.
day and I want that back," which is super cool because how many sports as intense as skydiving welcome you back when you're, getting the deal at the IHOP?
Yep, absolutely. It's the land of misfit toys, right? Every drop zone is is this eclectic grouping of people, all different ages, all different backgrounds, and nobody cares. That's the best part. You come to the drop zone, you're happy, you get away from all the bullshit
Yep.
going on in your life, and you can just hyper focus on what you're doing
Yep.
and have fun. But I have seen a bunch of that, of people coming back 15, 20 years later. Their kids are in college or they're graduated now, and they can refocus back on something for themselves instead of just taking care of the family.
Sure.
That's
Well,
been a bunch of people.
and there's something to be said for coming back to it a bit later in life when financially you're maybe a bit more established. Because, I mean, let's
Hmm.
face it, the most prohibitive part of skydiving is the cost.
Yes. Yeah. right. Even
It's
especially these days, it's a different
oh
clientele for
oh,
sure.
and it kind of has to be, right? I mean, I look at just the not even the day-to-day cost of skydiving, but the initial cost to get into it and through the courses and into equipment and stuff. What I spent on my entire beginning of skydiving through 100 jumps and a rig won't even get me a container these days.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's for sure.
Which I mean, I kind of get it. It's not like I don't really place a lot of importance on the cost of something that's going to save my life, God knows how many times a day. But $6,000 for a container? Holy
I
shit,
know. It's a
man.
lot. I know. You're there upwards of, 11 or $12,000 for all four components,
Yep,
brand new, all the bells and whistles. I don't know, it's definitely inflation. I think I read something just recently on Facebook that I think the only thing that hasn't really gone up in price in the last 20 years is a Cypress, like almost nothing,
yep,
right? But everything else is skyrocketed. Well, and then tandems are obviously still
for sure.
all just jump prices in general haven't kept up with inflation, but
For sure. I
that's
mean,
all right.
I guess I understand to some degree because the technology that has gone and the research, the R&D that's gone into modern equipment is so over the top. It's so
Oh,
intense. They obviously it's definitely the value for what you're spending. You're getting
right.
what you're paying for. But it really is hard to wrap your head around when you have that, 18, 19-year-old that comes on the drop zone that is just frothing to skydive, and then they try and wrap their heads around the fact that it's going to cost more than they'll make in their part-time job for years to get started.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Well, thank goodness for the used
right?
equipment out there, because there is a whole bunch of good used stuff out there that are it's pretty reasonable.
That's the thing, right? Is I mean, this stuff stands the test of time. I mean,
Hmm.
you can jump a well-maintained container for 20 years.
Oh yeah, easily. I did. I had two Mirages for at least 17 years before I replaced them.
Yep.
And
Well, and I mean, I don't know if you're the same, but they're like your kids when even though it's time to retire them, you're like, oh, but so many
yeah,
memories.
I know. It fits like a glove. It's so comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So you go full bore into the teaching and that's what you want to do and you chase all the ratings down. Where does it go from there? You become an established instructor. Did you find it hard to get yourself going in this sport, or was it a pretty easy transition?
No, it was not difficult at all. I all I wanted to do was jump and teach, and ended up, becoming an examiner for AFF and coach courses. And,
Cool.
and then another big part of that was becoming a USPA board member, which was sort of by accident, but I'd gone to a board meeting, excuse me, gone to a board meeting and just happened to be there when the Mideastern regional director resigned. And at that time, the process for filling a vacancy was a bit different. So I raised my hand and said, "Yeah, I'm interested." And so a couple other people did too, and the board voted me in, and there I was,
We
raising my hand and voting on important shit.
we did get kind of lucky in our generation in skydiving though, right? Because I started in 96, so a few years behind you. But we kind of got in when you could just get away with shit that now takes a lot of training and paperwork to do. We got grandfathered into a lot of cool shit.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and there was so much that needed to be done. Right. So I remember when I was finishing my student progression, and the accelerated free fall program wasn't being done at this tiny little drop zone that I started at. So they did static line, and I remember being in free fall and just backsliding across the sky and not understanding why, but there wasn't anybody there to give me a legs out signal. It
Right.
wasn't part of that process. And I thought there has to be a better way. So I ordered Rob Laidlaw's Skydive U VHS tapes and was laying on the table at the FBO at the little airport, sticking my legs out and moving my arms and thinking, okay, wait, this is all making sense.
Yeah.
This is cool. And so that's what motivated me to get involved in the creation of the training programs and hoping to make it better.
Sure.
And
Sure.
that's what interested me.
And it's kind of funny because I was there for AFF. I did the AFP program, which was really a very smooth transition for me. And luckily I was actually flying in the Vegas tunnel at the time. So I had learned a bit about body flight back in the day. And so that course went quite well. But I look back at those times in skydiving, and I hate to say we get to hang a little badge of honor in the fact that we learned all of our stuff 45 seconds at a time. No tunnels and very little instruction. It was hey, you know how not to die, high five, you're a skydiver, go figure it out. And you look back on it and you're like, yeah, I had no clue I knew how to open my parachute and what to do if shit went wrong. But other than that, I knew very little about how to skydive.
Right. And thank goodness that the canopies when we started were a little more forgiving than what people have experienced in the last, 15 years. Goodness, there was so much to learn.
and still is. It's funny too, because I've stepped away from it because I was in the cockpit for so many years, not really seeing the progression of canopies and landing for a number of years. And this is when the really insane canopies at all started to come out. And now I can't sit on the ground and watch current high performance canopies land without just kind of wincing a little bit.
Right.
Because the sight picture to me is all wrong from the ground. And I'm like, you're going to die. Because I remembered people toggle whipping stilettos.
Right. It just looks like the margin of error is so small, right? Between awesome and dead.
Yeah.
It's just so small. But yeah, I when I first started, my first parachute was a Maverick 200. And my next parachute was a Sabre, an original Sabre 135, and nothing in between.
Yeah.
And I remember opening that parachute and just pulling the toggle down and going so fast that I put it back. I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I'm so sorry. I'll never do that again. Oh my God, oh my God. It was like, oh my God, I'm so fucking scared. Like, how am I going to live through this? Right. But it just, and that was the very beginnings of, when the fatality rate just went crazy because we were so far behind. The training was so far behind the equipment, the parachutes that were coming out. Oof.
I was lucky that it scared me enough, and I came in just as the stiletto was killing everybody. Everybody's hooking themselves in all over the place, and I came into it jumping a PD 190, watching people frap in or hearing stories, going, I'm in no rush whatsoever. And the only reason I downsized at all was because I was trying to shoot tandem videos on a PD 190. I wasn't beating the tandems to the ground, so I had no choice. Otherwise, I don't think I would have been in even that much of a rush to downsize. So I think, and you must see it too as a DZO, the pressure on some of these people to try and be one of the cool kids has got to be so much more than it was for us.
It is, and the culture, and that's part of our job as drop zone owners and instructors, I think, is to create the correct culture at the drop zone about downsizing and about safety, because people don't, newer jumpers don't understand. They only see what the cool kids are doing and they think that's normal. And the people that do it well, just like in any other sport, they do it well, and so it looks easier than it is. They don't understand what has gone into making it look that easy. And so then they go up and they're trying shit that they are so, they're just so far ahead of themselves.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I always see the people that are doing these incredibly impressive high speed landings. And all I can think is, I wonder how much metal is in their body that they had to get to earn the ability to do what they're doing. Man, It's rough. So I can imagine, especially from your perspective, you've got to be super vigilant with the people coming out. Because, I mean, the last thing in the world you want is anybody to get hurt, especially on your own drop zone.
Right. And that culture of respecting parachutes, and it's getting much, much better, but it's almost brainwashing from the very beginning. Every downsize has to be something that they're afraid of in a way.
Right.
Right. Like you want them to respect it, not afraid in a bad way, but, respect it, understand it. If it feels fast, they weren't ready for it, and have those conversations. I think it's just, we're finally getting to the point where coaches and instructors are getting more comfortable teaching canopy stuff, canopy control and canopy skills, and emphasizing them, because, people aren't dying forward motion to redock,
Right.
that's just
Right.
that's not a problem.
Sure.
But but for a long time, our instructional, staffs out there across the United States and worldwide, we weren't training them how to teach canopy, so they
Sure.
weren't teaching it well.
Sure.
And we're that's coming full circle now. I feel like we're finally getting there. And in fact, we're getting ready to update the instructional rating manual at USPA, starting that project, complete rewrite, and adding in a whole bunch of great information about how to teach. So that's going to, over the next 10 years, it's not a quick process.
Sure.
Right. But over the next 10 years, I think it's going to get even better. And we're going to see an even improved, incident and fatality rate because of it.
Well, and we're also in a culture now that canopy courses are not the outlier, they're the norm. Like if you haven't done a canopy course, why? Why haven't you? Why aren't you doing this? Wait, you're trying to do that, but you haven't done a canopy course. And so it's exactly the opposite. It's not, hey, take this little canopy and go huck it. Now that's the ridiculous thing to do. And now it's no, do a proper canopy course. And now, of course, there are options as well. You've got so many good people that are out there giving these amazing courses that are designed to teach every level and every mentality. And so it's, from my perspective, is a wonderful thing to see. And I wish I'd have had it back in my time.
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely normalizing for sure. Yeah. And with that, people are expecting it. Right. The old guard is kind of, fading out. And the new guard is, well, students expect you to talk about canopy stuff. And of course, we're going to talk about the pattern. Of course, we're going to talk about what canopy skills. And if you don't, well, then the students are sometimes even holding instructors accountable. Like, well, wait, what about this on my card? I'm supposed to, but you have to create that culture at your drop zone. I mean, I would encourage every DZO to know what's on that, especially the new A license card that's coming out, that's completely updated with a whole bunch of new canopy stuff. Know what's on that card, and really encourage your staff to teach it first. Teach it before the canopy or before the free fall skills. Make sure that it never gets missed.
Yeah, I mean, and it definitely, especially growing up in the sport, was very much an overlooked aspect of the sport. It was an afterthought. You as a person, if you were struggling with canopy stuff, you had to go out of your way to ask somebody, hey, how do I do this? How do I do that? And now that has changed dramatically, which is a wonderful thing to see.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Now, when you became an evaluator, especially for AFF, beside the fact that looks incredibly intense, which is a more difficult student to work with, an AFF student or an AFF instructor candidate?
Well, it's I think there's more performance anxiety in an AFF instructor candidate because there's bravado, like I'm a skydiver, I can do this, I've been practicing, I've got it. And so there's a little bit of that, but I don't know. I don't think either of them are hard to work with. It's just a student. It's the same teaching process. It's just at a different level.
Well, and it's
a lot of psychology again.
The course itself has changed a bit though, right? Because I mean, I did my course back in 2003 with Billy Rhodes. who
Mhm.
at the time was notorious for being a real hard ass to get through the
Yep.
course. And I
Yep.
can vouch for the fact that he played the mental part of that course as hard as I've ever been worked. I've never been more mentally stressed in my entire life,
Mhm.
which I understand. From a logical perspective, I realize you want to put me in high stress situations to see how I'm going to perform because it's going to come up in an AFF course. But then there's also that line where I'm now so stressed, I don't know that I'm retaining anything and I'm just fucking
Mhm.
hanging on for dear life.
Exactly.
And I mean, if you knew Billy, he was a real gent about fucking with you.
Uh-huh.
Like he was just the nicest guy in the world, but holy shit, man, he'd stick the knife in and just twist it so slow and
Yep.
would highlight the washout rate in his courses and so you knew, oh, most of us are not going to pass this course. And
Yep.
I had the gall to not have been able to take time off to do his pre-course. So,
Oh, well.
oh, and as it worked out, knock on wood, I was the only one actually that passed the course that I went in, but it was by far the hardest thing I've ever done. Is
Yeah.
it still like that, or is it geared a bit more towards these are the things you're looking at and easing people into that side of it more?
Well, it's not really easing them into it. It's just a different approach. So like I got my rating in 96 and actually Billy Rhodes was the my last jump, right?
Mine
Jump
too.
number 6, my last jump and I needed a 2 to pass. And the scoring system was 0 to 4 at the time. I needed a 2 to pass the course and I remember throwing his pilot chute and I landed and it was a good jump and all he said to me was just about screwed the pooch, Sherry. Because it was almost at the ridiculous hard deck of 3,000 feet at the time.
Yep.
But yeah, that was great. But what's different is like that course was a testing course that you and I went to.
Right.
And when it got changed, it became more of a teaching course.
Mm.
So that you could go to the course, you practice, hopefully you had some practice ahead of time, but you also then there was practice teaching and not just testing, and there was practice jumps and not just testing jumps.
Right.
And so you didn't have to come as maybe not as well prepared, but you didn't have to come there and know that you were going to have some crazy evaluator acting like Billy Bob
Yeah.
whoever. I don't know, there was some crazy characters that they played.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was exactly the same as you. It came down to my last jump and I think it was, don't remember if it was a pass or fail by the time I did it. But regardless, it came down to the last jump, and I was jumping with Billy. And anybody that never met Billy, Billy was a big boy.
Yes,
Like,
he was.
well, he was like what, 6'4", 6'5", and he was also round when I met him. That man had a belly. But apparently he figured out how to turn that belly into a bowl, because I've never seen a man that size float like he could float. And I knew it going into that jump, and I was a bit nervous, but we had gotten past the whole psychological student pretends to walk towards the prop bullshit. We're
Yeah.
just sitting in the boarding area at Skydive Arizona to go out and make that jump. And I'm nervous as hell, but to diffuse it, I talk. And so I look at him and I'm like, Billy. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, we're done with all the game stuff, right? And he's like, yeah. I'm all, well, then let's just go have a good fucking fun jump. And he kind of looked at me like he didn't quite know what to make of that. All right, let's do that. And
All
we
right.
got in there, and by then he had actually gotten away from letting students throw out his pilot chute because he'd had a few
Mhm.
throw it around his ankles and stuff, I guess. And so
Yeah.
he had the little Velcro plastic pud that was going on. And
Hmm.
I knew I nailed the jump. I got the handle right on time, pulled him out, tracked away, and apparently I was screaming so loud that they could hear me on the ground. We land and he comes over and he's all, okay, you can give me the handle back. And I handed him $5 instead. I'm like, this is my fucking handle.
I
like
love it.
no, man, I worked
It-
way too hard for that.
oh yeah. Yeah, that it's definitely an accomplishment to get that rating. It's a lot.
It was the hardest thing I did in skydiving, bar none.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the other thing though is that at that time, like the coach rating when you got it was very new. If
Actually,
it was around, it might have just been out, right?
Yeah, I didn't even have to get the coach rating. I was just in before it.
Yeah. So now people come to AFF courses so much better prepared because they learn how to teach as a coach, and they've used that rating. Because I mean, that's the whole purpose of the coach rating is to teach you how to teach.
Sure.
Give you a process for teaching. And so when they come to an AFF course, it's just about flying skills, really. Most all of them just breeze through the teaching stuff. They've taught it all before. It's just a few, a few different pieces of information, but the process is the same. So
sure.
that has helped as far as as an examiner. Teaching an AFF course is way easier than teaching a coach course.
I bet. Yeah. Well, because the coach course kind of replaced what you would have done in an AFF course back in the day. So it's exactly that, right? You're not just teaching people how to fly the jumps, you're teaching people how to teach.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
foundational.
When did you cross that ultimate line and decide, I think I want to own a drop zone?
Well, that came like all at once because my sister, who had jumped a couple times, lived up in Akron, and I went to see her because she wanted to do AFF. I had a couple hundred jumps at the time, and we ended up going to Akron Skydivers, and I met my soon-to-be then husband, who owned and ran that drop zone. And so he bought out the club, the Akron Skydiving Club, and turned it into a business in the late 80s. And so I met him in 94, I believe, and ended up marrying into that chaos. So at the very, with just a few hundred jumps, started helping to run the drop zone and getting ratings, and just, 100% in.
I mean, I know what the chaos of running a drop zone looks like from all my years being a jump pilot. So you see some degree of it, but you only see it in bits and pieces. Like I see manifest and I see how mental that is. I see the flying side of things. I see how mental that is. And especially if there's concessions and the packing, all these different things. But then you look at the poor DZOs who just, man, I mean, I don't know how you do it and stay sane.
You have to love it. You do. But I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy or something, but I can't imagine doing anything else. I just can't. I don't. It makes me so happy when the drop zone's running, and so fucking mad when the weather comes in and you have to stop or you have to hold students. And
sure,
so that's the really frustrating part, is when you can't just make it go.
Sure.
Well, when it's going, it's awesome.
Being a drop zone in the Midwest, which is notorious for hit and miss weather, it's gotta be. I mean, it's not the easiest life to choose because a lot of it is just out of your control.
It is, and it's every drop zone has some sort of season. Most of the areas of the United States, but for us, we're going really hard from mid-April through the end of October, and it's just nonstop. Anytime the sun's shining, you just go, and that's great because then you have a few months off to sort of recover in the winter and tear the rigs all apart and
I was going to say,
everything back together. And
come November, are you just taking a deep breath and going, I need a break? Or are you already counting the days for the season opener?
I'm never ready for it to end. I'm never ready for the season to end. Like right now, I'm just dreading it because I'm thinking, oh my God, it's the end of August. There's only 2 months left. This is going to suck. I hate that first phone call, because inevitably they start about right now, that first phone call. How long does your season go? When does your season end? Because that's like,
yep.
Start thinking about it, and I don't like it at all.
It's maybe it was different because I spent most of my working time either jumping hardcore or sitting up front, but I was always just physically ready for the rest of a bit of off time in the season. And I worked a lot of year-round drop zones, but it would slow down dramatically. So at least you got to catch your breath a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I did seasons in Cross Keys where we were doing, Saturday, Sunday, 25 to 27 tandems a piece. I mean,
Right.
I've never worked that hard in my entire life, but I don't ever remember it being hard work, if
Right.
that makes sense. Like
That makes
physically, I was
perfect sense. Yeah,
destroying myself living off of Red Bull and Snickers, but we had so much fun. It was so good.
I know.
You know,
It's crazy. It is. It's a crazy life, but it's a great life. Like, look at what the hell we're doing. Like, I sit there and look out the door, climbing in the otter, and think, God, how can I be so lucky? This is
yeah,
such a great life.
yeah.
Love it.
Now, you've seen a lot of changes over the years, and especially as a DZO, the different aspects of trying to run the whole thing, and the sport itself has changed, aviation's changed. The rules and regulations with planes are always kind of up in the air. I mean, I don't think we're ever on incredibly solid footing on the aviation side of things. So, how does that weigh on you? Because now you're talking about tossing in the aircraft side of things, which is its own huge nightmare sometimes.
Well, I feel like there sometimes I hear doom and gloom for the skydiving industry, because it's oh, we're going to lose all the small drop zones and we're going to end up with just these destination drop zones with all turbine aircraft. And like, who can even start a drop zone these days? Equipment's so expensive. I mean, you can't buy a 182 for $30,000 and
Right.
anymore, like, 25 years ago. It's just, but I feel like, I just feel like it's going to persevere, that the whole industry is too positive. Like, it's such a good positive experience for so many people. And even if it's, if you're doing it for 2 years or if you're doing it for 20 years or whatever, it's a good industry. And I
Mm,
think that it's going to evolve. It's going to continue to evolve. And maybe there'll be, maybe you're going to have a higher income to be able to become a licensed skydiver over time. But if you really want it, if it really catches you, even as a young person without a lot of money, you're going to find a way to do it. Like,
sure.
there's still not enough packers in this industry, and they still make a shitload of money
Oh,
if
yeah.
they're there and they're dedicated. And there's still, a nationwide instructional rating holder shortage.
Sure.
So, I mean, I would sponsor anybody that came in and said, I'll come and pack. And can I do AFF? And while I pack, and absolutely, if
Sure.
I can get somebody that's dedicated, I'm going to help make them part of my drop zone and part of that family. And I
Oh,
think that's
yeah.
probably true for any smaller drop zone. You create your own staff and you hold on tight to them and hope they don't move away.
Sure. Well, that's the thing, right? Is finding that quality staff and then hanging on to them. And
Mm-hmm.
it's great to hear you say that, because a lot of the drop zone mentalities used to be there's a never-ending supply of people, and all right, this person wasn't perfect at all these things, so we can let them go. And it was a rotating circle of staff, especially through my home drop zone, which was Skydive Las Vegas at the time. So finding DZOs that want to hang on to long-term staff and turn it into not just a job, but potentially a career is an amazing thing, because there's a lot of skydivers out there that are looking for exactly that.
Yeah, I think so. I think there are a lot of skydivers that want to be instructors and that they want to be in the industry. Um, I think if there's anything I worry about is, are there people out there that still want to be DZOs and start a drop zone
Mm,
because of the expense of starting it, the liabilities, the commitment that it takes to run a drop zone, and then still for most people to have another job, to have regular income and not have to worry about the drop zone being, a big financial success. Because I think most drop zones are just, it's a passion. You're doing it as a DZO, not because that's your sole income, but because
Sure.
you love it.
Well, and that's the thing, right? As an instructor, as a tandem AFF instructor, even though I'm long on current, I always have a job as long as I am physically and mentally able to do that job.
Yeah.
The DZO step is a lot different. So much more goes into it. But like my wife joked around when I retired from flying full time, she's like, "Well, what the hell are you going to do now?" I'm like, "Honey, if I'm ever hurting for a job, I'll just go pack parachutes." Well,
Yeah.
I know damn well I know how to do that. And so it's kind of it's a forever job as long as for an instructor. But the DZO thing takes that extra level of dedication because there's just so many more moving parts and so much more responsibility because now you're the one making sure that I have that job to go to every day.
Yeah, that's true. And you have to create an environment that people want to work there.
Yes.
And they feel appreciated, and then they're part of the team.
Yes. I mean, we all have great DZO and shit DZO stories.
Yeah.
Because they're people, right? I
Right.
mean, one of my favorite people on the planet and one of my favorite DZOs on the planet's Ray Farrell. And he's as cantankerous as you can possibly get. And I love that son of a bitch.
Right.
He put me in the air doing tandems. He put me in the PAC 750. He gave me endless amounts of grief and made me work way too hard. But you could tell that he still loved what he did and was good at what he did.
Yep.
So you just kind of get past Ray's in a fucking mood today.
Yep. Right.
you
Right.
know? But I absolutely love the guy because you could see where his heart really was. Whereas I've also worked for DZOs that you're like, that guy's only in it for the money. He'll replace me in a heartbeat. There's nothing about him that says skydiver to me. So I think it's finding that home that is exactly what you're offering, which is I want these people here. I want them to, have a good career and a happy life at this drop zone because then I get to have one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
A student, a current student who's halfway through the program, just said the coolest thing to me just a week ago. He said, "Thank you for having the dream so we can all be part of it."
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah. I thought, wow, that's really cool that he recognizes that there's a bigger picture,
And it's those little nuggets that you get just every once in a while. Every once in a while, I'll get a message from someone thanking me because I had someone on the show or thanking me for having the show. Or I got a message just the other day from one of the manifestors that I worked with for years saying she missed having me on the radio. That's all it takes. Hook, line, and sinker. You got me.
right.
Whatever.
Right. Thank you.
I'll do whatever because that's all you want to hear, right? It's so good.
It is. There's so many times that you can get that fulfillment. Like there's so many students that have come back through, or I get a message saying, you did this for me, or you did that for me, or you helped me with this. And I feel bad, but I don't even necessarily remember the situations,
Right?
like so many years of so many students. I don't know. I mean, I was just doing what I do, and I'm so glad that it impacted them in a positive way. But
I'm right there with you. I mean, I
Yeah.
started doing tandems in Las Vegas, and without fail, every once in a while, someone would bump into you in town. Hey, you took me on my jump this many years ago, and you're like, absolutely. Meanwhile, you have no fucking clue. You're like, dude, I met 9 of you that day, and that was
Right.
one day in the 7 that week that I worked.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing too, right? Skydiving is an all or nothing. Obviously, there are people that can go out and do the weekend warrior stuff, but for people like you and me, once we're in the sport, it's full bore.
Yeah, 100%.
So on top of everything, running the DZO and all this stuff and doing the board stuff, you're looking to remain on the board, yeah?
Oh yeah. So yeah, I started in 2001.
Wow.
Is when I joined the board. And the upcoming election starts October 1st, and you can vote electronically through October 31st. And the board is so damn productive now. Chuck Akers has been president for 6 years, and he's done just a phenomenal job being president, and just the decorum, the professionalism, the teamwork has been outstanding. I'm just so proud of the last 2 terms and what we've gotten done. And there's so much more to do. I'm not ready to quit. I've got so much more to give to keeping things moving forward. And I'm so excited about the next term if I can get reelected. Yeah.
It's amazing to see the dedication that's going on throughout all of it. And it's kind of been this wonderful changing of the guard to some degree. And when Al took over the big seat, I've had him on a couple of times, and watching the love that he has and how active he still is, and then seeing that all down the board. These aren't people that are, still stuck in ways that they did back in the day. These are very progressive people looking towards making sure that they adapt to all the new shit that's coming at them really fast.
Yeah, I don't hear, well, this is how we've always done it. Like that is not something that we say anymore. Well, this is how we've always done it, because we don't want to do it how we've always done it. We want to do it whatever way is going to be best for the membership, and whatever way the teaching has improved. And Albert has been awesome as the executive director. Oh my gosh, just amazing. And the staff at USPA have been just amazing. Like, especially, I just have to shout out for Jen Sharp. I don't know if you've met Jen, director of IT.
I haven't met, no.
Oh my gosh, she is amazing. And she almost single-handedly, and I know she would deny it, but has everything that is done online now, all of your renewals, your rating renewals, your membership renewals, all of the online education, along with Ron Bell, who is also just a freaking godsend to USPA, have just brought it over the last 7 or 8 years, have just made this organization so far ahead. Just made it so much better. If you weren't jumping, 10 years ago, when everything was done on paper, you had to call in to do, everything was so different, so different.
Yep.
All of the elections were, done completely different. And now we can do everything in-house. And I'll tell you what, Jen Sharp has just been huge in making that all happen.
Well, and it's great to see it all rolling with the times. And especially for me, it's also cool because I see it becoming obviously more and more progressive, but I also know personally the people that are involved. Whereas when I was in the beginning of the sport, it was just a name and some signature that was on every license or every rating that I got, or you get an award and some guy that you don't know signed it. Maybe you've heard the name, but now I've been drunk with Al. Yeah. Like, I worked at Cross Keys with that boy. I got stories, and it's so fantastic because I know how passionate he and so many others in now the running of everything are. So I feel like there's more of a voice for me, and that there's more of an investment. And I know that back in the day, they were probably the exact same way. I just didn't know them. So now it's just seeing that changing of the guard and our generation of skydivers taking the lead is just cool.
Yeah, it is. And that's a really great point to make for any younger jumpers that are listening into this podcast, is that if you don't know the people on the board, like, all we are skydivers that love it. That's it. Yep. That's all we are. We're no different than you. We just love skydiving, and we don't mind spending 3 days in a conference room battling things out in hopes of making things better, twice a year. So, that's, get involved. I'll tell you one thing. One of the the most eye-opening things that people do. Skydivers who say, oh, the board this, the board that, USPA this, USPA. Well, you know what? You know what USPA is? USPA is you, USPA is me, USPA is every member of the organization. It's just some people choose to give a shit and get involved, and some people don't. And that's okay.
Sure.
They don't have to. But if you're going to complain about it, get involved. Come to a board meeting and just for one time see what we do.
Sure.
And you will change your mind. I remember Sonic coming to his first board meeting, and at the end of the first day, he was like, wow, I can't believe how this is. And then he ran for the board. Unfortunately, that didn't work out, but man, I hope he tries again, because new voices, new ideas, that's what keeps us moving and making us better.
It's funny because I've never seen a board meeting. I have no idea what they're like, but I have a mental picture because I know what it's like when you get a big group of skydivers in a heated debate going on. So I picture mayhem, and I always want it to stay that way. I don't care how professional you guys are. I like picturing it mayhem where you still get shit done because it just makes me giggle.
Well, and sometimes it is.
Yeah. Oh, I can imagine. I
Sometimes it
mean,
is.
at the end of the day, skydivers don't come into the sport not being relatively sure of themselves and opinionated. We're kind of a
Right.
unique blend.
Yeah,
We
right.
are.
There's a little A-type going on. in
A
all
little
of
bit.
us. Yeah.
So as we wrap things up, I want you to tell us how we find the Drop Zone, how we find it online and in socials, how we find you online, and once again, how everybody can vote with these upcoming elections.
Okay, so I'm going to start with the voting. On October 1st, you'll get an email from USPA with a link for you to log in, and you can vote anytime from October 1st to October 31st. And you can vote for up to 8 national directors, and then you'll be able to vote in your own region. So please participate. We have had like the highest turnout of voters, in the last election than we ever did. And so let's just hope that keeps growing.
Nice. Quick question with that for anybody listening. I assume you have to be a current USPA member.
Yes.
So
Yep.
if you're a current member, you're going to get that email.
Correct. Yep.
Great.
If you are currently a member, and that's to the email address you have on file for, your profile at uspa.org.
Great. Okay. And so how do they find the Drop Zone, and how do they find you?
So airohio.com is the website for the Drop Zone, and you can find us on Facebook, Air Ohio Skydiving, Instagram. Find me, Sherry Schlater Butcher, on Instagram or Facebook. And also I have Sherry Butcher, USPA National Director, as well, on Facebook for
Awesome.
a page. Yep. Any questions, anything you want to know about the board, how it works,
Awesome.
what USPA is doing, reach out to me. I'm always willing to talk and answer questions and help if I can.
Fantastic. Well, when I pack my daughter up and send her back home to the States, she'll be pretty close to you. So when her and her friends get an itch to go jumping, I'm sending her straight to you.
Awesome. Would
Sherry,
love to help her.
We set this up last minute. This was a great conversation. I'm so glad that we had the opportunity to sit down and chat, and I can't wait to see what comes next.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I sure appreciate it.
You take care.
Bye-bye.
Well, there you have it. Another episode of the Lunatic Fringe podcast, brought to you as always by, well, wait, not as always, actually. Brought to you now by Gyro. Formerly known as NZ Aerosports, you'll head to gyro.com for their next level line of canopies. By Pussfoot, the Extreme Sports Collective. Head over to pussfoot.com to check it out. By Summit Parachute Systems, check out summitparachutesystems.com to talk to Jarrett Martin and the gang about kick-ass pilot rigs, rigging courses, and more. By Flyaway Indoor Skydiving, go to flyawaytn.com and check out all the cutting-edge stuff to come. By Pure Spectrum CBD. Head to purespectrumcbd.com to check out their wide range of CBD products. And as for us, head to the lunaticfringepodcast.com to listen to any of the hundreds of episodes currently available. Hit the link for our YouTube channel, pick up your copy of the Lunatic Fringe book or The Accidental Stripper, and get a sneak peek at upcoming guests. Once again, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.